It's amazing to be at this 10th Financial Digital Financial Inclusion Summit. Let me acknowledge all the distinguished guests and dignitaries that have been with us today. To support the FinTech community. Thank you for your support. Let me congratulate the candidates, the runners-up, the winners, now that we've had them, in the Digital Impact Awards. Thank you for your belief and your effort and the sweat and hard work that I know you've had to put in to achieving those awards. Technology, FinTech, those are combinations of two quite hard things. And to do it well, you should be very proud of yourselves. And of course, if I can thank HiPipo and the amazing team that have, over the last 10 years, made all this possible. So I will try and be as quick. I'll bring up my timer so I can have a look. But I hope that by the end of today, I'll have shared some ideas with you, some slightly new ideas, but they're building on where we've been, where we've come from. And that is around digital public goods and the digital public infrastructure that they are going to be providing for us in the future. And I'd like us to have an idea of why those are key things for us to be taking away as we go out and do our world. As Jane challenged us to, we are the people who are going to make the changes happen. We're the people that have committed ourselves to this through all our time now. So I'm going to try and give a brief introduction to that, and hopefully that will encourage all of you and all of the speakers who've come and gone today to take up this. Now, the future lies in the collaboration, I believe, between government, commercial, and community. We really need to build the infrastructure for digital rails of the future. And those digital rails will become the thing that financial services of the future sit on top of. And that requires payments and identity. We've just heard the challenges about how not having clear identity means you can't be in a land registry. These are things which are all coupled together. We were talking with representatives from the Bank of Uganda this morning, and they clearly were able to articulate these needs, these infrastructure rails that are needed to build the future. And when we have all of this B2B facility in place, we need to make sure that actually we have solutions which empower customers. We've heard about the customer-centric, the person-centric approaches that so many of the teams and successful fintechs have been taking. It's when they put the actual users at the heart of their solutions, that's when we start to win. That's when we start to deliver value. And that's when we can get onto the path of providing equitable financial services that lift people up from where they are. Those are necessary for us to be able to meet people where they are and make sure that we can start to address things like poverty, not just in financial terms, but poverty in healthcare, poverty in education, things that actually hold people back. I was privileged to join this and be on this stage in 2019. We were very optimistic about the future. And I don't think anybody expected COVID-19 back then. But a few months later, the world was going into a crazy tailspin. And obviously, that has been a challenge for all of us in all our lives. But actually, as the people have shown, we've also used that as an opportunity to rise to the challenge, to make the world a better place, to accelerate the adoption of financial services that have actually helped people through this. But there's some things which have changed and some things which haven't. So if we look at the extremes first, lots of the services that we've seen strive and thrive have continued to propagate old prejudices, barriers to citizens accessing services or using their funds as they wished. Sometimes that materializes as KYC. Without an identity or an address, sorry, we can't give you a service. We've just heard that story. Sometimes it's as simple as fees. I go into an organization and I ask for something and they say, well, sorry, the fee's this much, can you pay? Or it's closed loop systems where it's kind of, if I suck you in and I hold you and control you, then you can do everything you like as long as you do it my way. Telcos did this when they first gave data. They said they'd have walled gardens. You could only access the internet that they wanted you to access. Mobile money companies did this when they started because they said you have to be our customer to do this. Those are not recipes for growth. And I'm sure most of us in this room can relate to being in one of those situations. I think the harder question for us all, though, is where have I been the cause of one of those situations? Also, there have been some good changes. The amount of attention that Africa-based fintechs has gained over the last 2 years, 3 years. I think in 2002, there were $3.5 billion worth of investment funding placed into just the top 10 Africa-based fintechs. That is an awful lot of funding. There is that recognition that Africa and Asia, UPI has been impressive. It's changed the world. It's changed the way the developed markets think of financial inclusion. But Africa and Asia, out of necessity, have been leading the way. And I think that that's actually something which we can truly celebrate. Everyone's efforts here have contributed to that, and as an industry, we have continued to move forward. There are financial services spanning the entire spectrum. There are microloans, there's M-Shwari, Mocash, there are insurances in health and agriculture, buy now, pay later schemes that have assisted with assisted savings. There are strides by established players to open up services. Momo Pay from MTN is a particularly successful and encouraging case. They've seen growth returns as part of the infrastructure of the future. But like the last panelists were saying, we have to make sure that we are building gender-aware services, that when we want services that are going to support women, we involve the women in the creation of those services. One of my stories about the creation of M-Pesa is, and I absolutely know this to be true, one of the reasons it met the market where it needed to be is we had ladies on the ground telling us what the customer experience was, feeding that back to people who were writing code in a dark room somewhere. Without actually having the customer at the center of that conversation, without having people that were able to relate to the customer in that conversation, it would have failed. Right now, we need to make sure that the services do meet people where they are. We need to make sure that there's incremental and appropriate support for them. So things like tiered KYC that allow you to get access to small credit, that allows you to build that credit history. These are all vital steps that reach down and give people a helping hand up. That's what equitable means. It doesn't mean that we set the same rule and say, if you have an address, if you have this income, that you can participate. So we've heard examples of all of these things today. There really is much we can celebrate. Technology has not been my friend at the moment. my notes are not moving on. Just a little more context on myself and the Infotech's team. Well, you've heard some of this already. We were involved since 2005 in the creation of M-Pesa at Vodafone. We've worked with IFC and we've worked with the Mojaloop Foundation to do a lot of digital transformation work. And we are focusing more and more on interoperability and building technology and services that reduce these barriers to access. But we're a small company, a small startup company ourselves. We can't do that alone. But this room today is an example of what can be done as a community. It's actually about all of us having a common vision and a goal and working together, contributing our own parts to that. So, interoperability programs that we've been involved with deliver inclusive and instant payment solutions. It's based on Mojaloop. That's an open source payment solution. It provides that interoperability, that impedance matches. It allows you to connect all classes of financial institutions together with zero systemic risk. Because as financial service providers, that's what everybody cares about. We have to manage the risk. That's what the government needs us to do, manage the risk. So we have to design things that address that underlying problem. Some things are very easy to do, but are dangerous. We heard people today speaking about security, speaking about trust. So we have to spend the time, take a little more time and care to have good interoperability. And that is a little more difficult than just solving the technical problem. And that is why you've heard a few moments ago from Dr. Jonathan sharing the experiences of CBC. There is one of those programs. We're doing cross-border remittances for merchants in particular. We heard earlier about the diaspora conversation and about how do we actually facilitate that reliably and robustly. Now, the way that the international remittance market works at the moment, the way corresponding banking works, the way MasterCard and Visa work, those are not things that scale, actually. They don't scale down to the level that we need it to be. I don't want to have to wait till I have $200 before I can send it to my brother in South Africa. I want to be able to send $20. But if I do that, it's going to cost me $9 to send it. You know, we all know, we've all had these kind of experiences. So, with Mojaloop, we've been involved in programs in East, West, Southern Africa, Central America, Southeast Asia. These programs, as a community, have affected the way FedNow is being designed and implemented in the US. It's affecting the way the standards, ISO 20022, which, raise your hand if you know ISO 20022. Nobody, whoa, one person I saw. Okay. Yeah, that is a very sad thing. But it is the standard that is being used by the US, and they're insisting that everybody else follows suit. So we are helping them change ISO 20022 standard for real-time payments. Because America doesn't have real-time payments. Africa has real-time payments. Now, in truth, all of these interoperability programs are yet to reach critical mass. They're growing. Some are doing very well, doing many transactions a day. I can't say how many. Others are still in proof of concept or friendly user trials. And there's a lot of learning that's happening. And what we're hoping as an industry is that we can feed that learning back. Sometimes, you know, when I listen to the challenges raised by the mobile money agents this morning, it saddens me because, at one time, mobile money was the new kid on the block. But when you listen now, it kind of sounds like they've become a bit lazy, like they've become the established way. And, from the stories, from the challenges we hear from the field, we know there's still so much to be done. Having good identity infrastructure is key to addressing fraud. Having network stability can be addressed by actually sharing networks. Why does everybody need to have, each mobile phone operator on their desk to be able to take a payment? Why do we need to have multiple terminals from each bank? Why do we need to? Interoperability helps solve those things if we can share those infrastructure components. They're not where we're competing. Let's compete on good financial products. Let's share infrastructure so we can scale and get resilience and get better customer services. So that interoperability can be very simple. It's, you can send money from a bank in America to a bank in South Africa right now. It just takes a long time. I don't know if it's going to work or not work. And even when the bank tells me it's there, it might not be there. Interoperability, good interoperability, takes extra effort. So thank you to everybody like CBC who's going on that journey with us. Thank you to the Bank of Uganda, who this morning was giving us actually a teaching on how, on the characteristics of what good interoperability needed to be. So as we develop these rails, we want to make sure that we can do them efficiently and at scale. One of the key components to that is to understand the movement that's happening within digital public goods. What digital public goods means is that there are a set of programs and platforms and solutions like Merger Loop that have really been packaged up and presented as building blocks for governments or other organizations to use. Because not everybody needs to figure out how to do good payments. Not everybody needs to figure out how to do good health. So the software industry has for a long time spoken about open source. Some of you in the banking sector may know that there's challenges to using that. A lot of those challenges were based upon fears and myths. A lot of work is going into unwinding that. Finos is an organization that is helping support financial services adopt open source solutions, helping them understand the risks, deal with the myths and the dragons, and make sure that they actually can use them to scale their services. We all use open source. Anyone with an Android phone, anybody who's installed a Linux server in their back office, we all use it. So we need to own the fact that we use it and do it well. Digital public goods is the same for government. Help governments get into a place where they can actually understand the risks of using open source platforms, how to manage those risks, and therefore how to accelerate. As you look at your next project, if you are an entrepreneur thinking about starting something new, if you are in a corporate looking at a new product and services, I ask you to go and look at the Digital Public Good Alliance website. There you will find a list of registered building blocks, 157 of them, components that you can use as you build out your product. Because there's an old saying that's, science, it's standing on the shoulders of giants. For us to have economy of scale and not to have everybody reinvent the software wheel each time, we need to find safe and robust ways to use these building blocks. Platforms like Loop for instant payment rails, identity platforms like MOSIP, health platforms like DHIS2. These are components which are there. If you are trying to offer a health service, if you're trying to offer a health insurance, they're pre-packed services that you can use, technology solutions. It allows you to focus not on the rails, not on the basic thing you need, but on actually making a better service, on actually how do you put your customer, your sector of the market at the heart of the service you're offering. This is not a fly-in-the-night exercise. We have nine government organizations from 9 different governments already signed up to supporting digital public goods. We've had 9 countries at the recent Loop seminar looking at adopting that. This will succeed as we work together to build the infrastructure, the financial services and products that run on it, and the customer engagement models. To echo one of the earlier panels as well today, working together with government and regulators. Your regulator here in Uganda already has sandboxes. They asked you to come and use them. Working together with the commercial financial services and fintech innovators. We will find new ways to collaborate, new ways to build a future quicker and easier than we did in the past, providing cheap and safe rails that we can add higher value services on top of. 10 years on, I'd like to celebrate the impact that this community has had, celebrate the growth of the financial services, both by the established fintech players and the new fintech entrepreneurs and startups. It's great that MTN, Stanbic, all the banks, I'm sorry, I forget all their names right now, but it's great that they think that they can contribute in this space, that they have the DNA to actually be innovators still. Never lose that. We can celebrate the growth of support from the government and the regulator. The fact that they have sandboxes, the fact that they have the mechanisms in place which allow us to try out our new ideas. There's a lot that has been done. It is amazing to be here today and hear from so many of you from across the continent about what you are doing. But I think all of us know that there is more to be done. So the challenge we have the tools, we have the community. And I look forward to working with all of you as we build an inclusive and equitable society going forward. It might be one step, might be lots of steps getting there. But I know that and have faith that if the last 10 years are anything to go with, we'll get there in the end. Thank you very much.